Look who's back. It's the artist. Hey man, I just want to say thanks for all your financial advice or whatever. It's been very helpful. Okay, good. Did you get QuickBooks? You know, Mint is also a great app for managing finances on the go. Nah, I kind of came up with my own thing. It's called Stop Gas. Stop Gas? Yeah, you know, gear acquisition syndrome. Okay, check this out. So S stands for start with the why. You know, why do you need this gear? Nobody knows. T stands for take your time, slow down. What's the rush? O stands for open your mind to the possibilities. Okay, I need you to stop right there. First of all, that doesn't even make any sense. And second, you still owe me money for lunch last time. Hey, welcome back guys. So recently I sold off a bunch of gear during my year-end gear cleansing event, and the good news is I made some money, yay. Now, the bad news is this money is, it's pretty hard earned, right? Because even if you are lucky enough to, let's say, make a little bit of money on gear, just think about it. You don't get the tax you paid on it. What about the shipping? And also those online transaction fees really erode into sort of the margin that you think you're making on any gear. So what's the upside? Well, I think the upside is that if you can take some of that pain, that sting of selling your gear into account, when you do buy a new piece of gear, you'll really make sure that you want to make that purchase count. We all know that the real ROI, or return on investment on your gear, it's not coming from the money you make potentially, right? In fact, it comes from other more intangible things, like how the gear inspired you or brought you joy or caused you to be more productive creatively. So I want to take a look at some of my more successful gear purchases that I've made in the past and see if it can guide me like a retrospect to making much better decisions in the future. And of course, as always, if you guys have any great gear purchasing advice or philosophies, man, please leave them in the comments below so we can all learn from those great insights. Now, I know URAC modules have got some haters, and rightfully so. One of my most viewed videos on this channel is literally about buying no more URAC modules. But that still doesn't negate the fact that URAC modules have made a huge impact in my creative journey. Pamela's new workout for me embodies like everything that's great about the URAC ecosystem, and also a reminder of its limitations. Pamela is a clock source, it's a clock divider, it's got a lot of physical CV outputs for its size, just 8 HP. And underneath the hood, it's got quite the extra bells and whistles like Euclidean rhythms, LFO wave function outputs, and much, much more. Just about every patch, I usually start with Pamela, and that's saying a lot. You can so quickly get up on it and also go really deep. It comes with a fair warning as well, kind of good actually, because it tells you about what the URAC experience could be like a heads up to give you all for all the amazing possibilities, but also some of its pain points. But with a little bit of practice, you find that the UI is just deep enough to pack a tremendous punch without trying to do too much. And I think this is a hallmark of any great gear. In fact, just great products in general, is that they surprise you. A good product just does what's expected. A great product does something always beyond what's advertised. The URAC ecosystem is hugely diverse, which means there's going to be some fringe edge case products that are clunky, but the ones that rise to the top, like the Pamela's workout series, they are golden and they can really help you with your creative journey, which makes it that much worthwhile. Okay, let's see what the price trend is like. So there's now 3 versions of Pamela's workout. The original one, I own the new version, and then now there's the pro version. So the prices are pretty good, man. Like even with the new pro model that just came out, it's holding its value well, which is a testament to how useful it is. I have to say the GR1 is to blame for the entirety of my gas problem. The GR1 comes from a company called Tasty Electronics, which set me off on this incredible creative journey. First, it made me want to make music with it, and second, to make videos about it, thus this YouTube channel. A quick note about the GR1 by Tasty Electronics. The GR1 is a standalone granular synthesizer. For those of you who are new to granular synthesis, it's basically like it chops up audio samples into these tiny bits and just reassembles them, hopefully in super musical and interesting ways. Now, it's not like I wasn't aware of what granular synthesis could do. I certainly owned a handful of software granular synthesizers, but it never really inspired me like the way the GR1 has. After 20 years of using the computer, the GR1 somehow got me away from it, and it had me thinking about entirely new hardware and hybrid workflows for being creative. The GR1 just inspired me to record more, invest in mics, Outboard Gear to experiment with source materials once again after all these years. It literally made me less cynical and more optimistic about music making once again. And I have the GR1 to thank for being the kind of catalyst that it has been. Okay, let's see what the price trend is. Again, pretty darn good. It's not like it tanked or anything. These standalone niche products that does something very unusual and unique, I think it'll be useful for a very long time. I love it. The GR1 is made by a pretty small company, if I recall, and I think it's just so cool that these electronic devices are like handmade in these small batches by these passionate innovators. I think that's what makes it like super special. When I was putting my home studio together several years ago, I decided pretty early to invest in some great outboard gear because I work a lot with recording and tracking classical and acoustic instruments. Hardware preamps, compressors, EQs are pretty much indispensable. Like they shape the audio that's coming in. And if you work with like super dynamic and acoustic sources, you know exactly what I mean. Unlike synths and samples, if you work with like live dynamic vocals or drums or trumpets or violins, they can be darn troublesome to record. So you need and you want all the help you can get. In my experience, great pro-grade gear is often not about like this gatekeeping or somehow the gear makes your music sound better, because that's on you as the artist, right? But it does make life a little easier. And often these extra little features, unfortunately, tend to cost a bit more, sometimes a lot more. The Distressor is one of those industry standard compressors that you'll find in most pro studios. It just works. It solves problems, it's forgiving, and it's stupid easy to use. Ultimately, it saves time and it's dependable. So on occasion, if your creative workflow demands it, it's worth just getting the best-in-class product. Okay, so one nice thing about these brand-named recognizable gear is that it's a good bet that they will be in use for a good long time, and they tend to do well in the secondary market. The retail price has definitely gone up again, about 10%-ish, kind of consistent with the global inflation we're experiencing. Looks like there are a few used ones that's going for a pretty good price here, but generally, again, it's holding its value, I think we all have that I should never have sold it story, and this is mine. There was a time when I had to relocate and I just needed to sell off most of my gear, which included my entire microphone collection. And in that collection was my very first real pro microphone, the Neumann U87. Something I purchased from my first real paying gig making music way back then. It was fine. I sold it for a good price because Neumann also has decided to reissue it. They haven't appreciated in value like crazy, so, less FOMO. So when an opportunity came up to purchase this 40th U87 anniversary mic, I took it. I purchased it privately from a collector who was also kind of gear cleansing himself, so I got it also for a pretty good price. Now, this probably is not my most defensible purchase that I've made. I'm not really the one to get too sentimental with my gear because let's face it, These so-called collectibles can be kind of snake oily, and you pay for extra things that are just purely cosmetic, right? This is an absolutely gorgeous mic, both visually and sonically. With this special nickel plating, it sounds very neutral, clean, and quiet. It can track just about anything. It's as I remember it. Maybe a little quieter even, although that could just be my new preamps. Okay, so I can't find any for sale as of this moment, but I did find one that sold a few years ago for around $3,000 US. So again, a nice return. And as long as I take good care of it, it'll probably be okay for the future. Now, let's be clear, okay? This shouldn't get us too excited about somehow making collectible microphone purchases a long-term financial investment, so please no. Nevertheless, these limited collector items could do okay, it seems, with a bit of luck and some scarcity. Speaking of being sentimental, besides microphones, there's a class of musical equipment that you can bet that you can get some solid return on your investment. So a little story time here. When I was 10, I wanted to play the trumpet, but the school that I went to, they didn't have any trumpets left. Other kids already took the ones that they had. The only thing that was left was like the cymbals and this flute. So I sort of didn't realize that flutes were, let's say, popular with the girls, but not boys. But at the time, I didn't know or care really. I got pretty good at playing to the point where I got a nice scholarship to a university even. If you thought that URAC modules or something like the Octatrack was hard to get into, try learning a new musical instruments. It takes decades. Anyway, there's a long period of time where I took a complete break from music writing, which is probably another video altogether. But the GR1, being so inspirational, it got me want to record and make music again. So I took an inventory of all the instruments that I can play and also the ones that I wanted to learn to play. And the flute was, along with a few other woodwind instruments, was something that I can play well. So I decided to purchase them. Okay, so this particular model, the Q1 with the inline G and the B foot, that's just some, jargon. It's not some ultra rare instrument, but Haynes brand is a great brand and something that I'm very familiar with fondly. It's just beautifully made. Furthermore, this instrument uses a bit of real silver, which makes it kind of desirable. So while it hasn't soared in price value, it's holding its value pretty well. In fact, it's gone up about 10% or so, keeping up with inflation. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Gear chit chat is always fun. But more importantly, if you have any great gear purchasing stories, how a certain kind of gear or instrument that you purchased really inspired you and had a transformative effect on your creativity, man, I would love to know those stories and to learn from it. Share them in the comments below. And once again, I will see you next time.